Hi everyone, my name is Danrlei Souza. I'm from Santa Maria, Brazil. My research is dedicated to the phenomenological analysis of child life, making use of the results obtained by cognitive sciences and developmental psychology. And my presentation is called Being with in Infancy, the development of social cognition and the pragmatically contextualized activities. So, this presentation follows the path opened by two works. One is Gallagher's 1997 work, in which the philosopher proposes an idea of mutual enlightenment between the cognitive sciences and the phenomenological method. Phenomenology would achieve better results if supported by the discoveries of the cognitive sciences and psychology, and vice versa. The other is the idea is still under construction and very incipient of developmental phenomenology, in which some phenomenological notions would be useful to explain phenomena in childhood. So Vincini and Gallagher write about it. Phenomenology can go beyond the necessary evaluation and reinterpretation of experimental results. Some phenomenological notions and theories can be put forward on a pair with alternative cognitive psychological models and compete with them on grounds of empirical adequacy. For example, Husserl and Merleau-Ponty's notion of pairing can constitute a viable account of how infants access other minds. So, the philosopher's proposal is to link the important notions of Husserl and Merleau-Ponty with developmental research. But would it be possible to link Heidegger's phenomenological contributions with developmental research? For Hattab, yes. It seems to me that many central Heideggerian concepts are best defended, exemplified, and articulated by bringing child development into discussion. Consider how potentiality, temporality, and the historical repetition of tradition can be seen to mark child rearing as the beginning of Dasein-situated emergence. Consider also how the hermeneutic cycle, and especially Dasein's thoroughness, are perfectly intelligible in terms of having been reared. Heideggerian emphasis on pre-reflective world involvement opens up a richer array of phenomena for studying child development, which can improve upon standard theories that have overemphasized exclusive conditions of criteria. So, to better access this possibility of and the difficulties of relating Heidegger's phenomenology to developmental research, let's take a broad look at the foundations of Heidegger's theory. First, the Heideggerian account of childhood, okay, enlightened in the philosophy. Heidegger presents very briefly an account of infants' existence. Here I list some important elements of this account, but there are some others that could be analyzed, such as the affectedness or Befindlichkeit of the infant. First, Heidegger points out that the infant Dasein is not like an adult Dasein. It has its peculiarities, but even so, it has a historical character, okay? Heidegger talks about the first cry of the child, which would be an expression of shock, talks about movements that have no purpose but have orientation. It would be an outward orientation towards the world and others. And an entity is manifest to the child. Also, no behavior has yet occurred in relation to that, which means, for example, that objects appear to the child, even if he, she, or she doesn't have the capacity to make use of them or does not have the linguistic capacity to express such objects. So, for Heidegger, phenomenology is at the service of a fundamental ontology, which in turn has as its object of research the meaning of being in general. To achieve this goal, Heidegger proposes an extensive prior analysis of the ontological structure of the entity that has an understanding of being, Dasein, the entity that we are. As stated, we have an understanding of being that is pre-reflective. For example, when you use a hammer to fix something, we are having an understanding of the hammer's being. Pre-reflective because it's not necessarily explicit. We often use utensils on a daily basis without realizing that we are doing. Being in the world is the primordial structure of existence. It points to the fact that human being relates to the world by engaging with tasks and occupations and making use of utensils or equipment in certain contexts of meaning. An important notion is that of ready to hand, which indicates a certain standard attitude towards entities in our daily lives. They appear to us in their use, their usefulness. The hammer appears to me as something used to drive a nail, for example. Along with being in the world, an equally primordial structure is the structure of being with. The world in which we develop our activities is a world shared with other human beings. Society is the ontological source of familiarity and readiness that makes the ontic discovery of beings, others, and myself possible. Familiarity depends on the for the sake of which is provided by society. The for the sake of which is a self-interpretation that informs and orders all the individual's activities. For example, I interpret myself as a philosophy professor. Thus, my attitudes are conditioned by this self-interpretation, and the use of utensil, such as a chalk, is due to this, for the sake of being a good teacher. So, Heidegger presents a theory of how we find others strongly tied to the pragmatic dimension of human existence. We find others primarily in our daily activities. And what about development? A significant problem that Heidegger's theory may face is the following. At what age does the human being come to have the understanding of being that is characteristic of his existence as Dasein? It's a big problem, which I can't talk about right now. So I ask the following question. At what age does infants find others in a pragmatic context? This question can be answered by developmental psychology, based on the theory of levels of intersubjectivity. Okay, so primary intersubjectivity starts at 2 months of age. At this age, important changes are notable. One of the most significant is the fact that the infant starts to smile. To parents and attentive observers, the emergence of smiling as a positive emotional display that is oriented outward toward a person or in response to an external event. This behavior indexes a dramatic change. Furthermore, the studies by Meltzoff and Moore showed that infants are able to imitate other people's facial gestures, which reveals a matching between visual information and proprioceptive motor information. After 2 months, social expectations begin to exist with the new implicit goal in the interaction, the establishment of shared, pleasurable, and playful experiences. The infant has sensorimotor abilities and an active perceptual capacities in process of interaction, and there is already a sense of self at this stage of development. The infant has a sense of differentiation from the environment and also of being situated in it. Likewise, he interacts with other people with gestures and vocalizations and has proprioception, recognizing his own body. So at 9 months of age, there is also an important transition. The infant moves from a dyadic relationship with the caregiver to a triadic relationship with the other person and the world. In this way, the phenomenon of joint attention is revealed. In joint attention, the child coordinates her attention to the object and the adult at the same time as the adult coordinates her attention to the same object and the child. The infant shares contexts and pragmatically engage with the caregiver. The joint action is also present, understood as any form of social interaction by two or more individuals coordinating their actions in space and time to bring about a change in the environment. Okay, so for Gallagher and Jacobson, Heidegger's account is cast entirely in terms of secondary intersubjectivity, with no mention of processes that would fall under the concept of primary intersubjectivity. As for Heidegger, encounters with others are defined almost exclusively in terms of secondary intersubjectivity, of the pragmatic for the sake of which characterizes our ready-to-hand relations with the world. So, few conclusions here. It's possible to interpret secondary intersubjectivity as the first manifestation of being with. The encounter with others takes place in the engagement in activities in a pragmatic context. A critical approach, Heideggerian account of being with lacks the primary intersubjectivity. His explication indicates nothing about the kind of embodied sensory motor and emotion-rich capabilities that are present in primary intersubjectivity in the first months of life, okay? And about child rearing, Hatab, again, human realities are historical phenomena in a special sense, namely the intersection of personal and cultural history in the media of child rearing, since the raising of children is always informed by the historical influences upon and cultural expectations of caregivers and teachers at every level of engagement. Primal sociality is most obviously evident in child rearing, considering this essential dependence of the child on others for its enculturation into a world of practices and language use. So, this is the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you.